listen to those sales calls, listen to the calls that went well, the calls that went badly, and listen to them full funnels.
So what I'd love to do is get your perspective, Sidney, on, before you build an audience, how do you start to understand your customers? Like, what's your process? Where do you start from?
Yeah, I've done this internally and, at Refine Labs as well. When typically you have like some sort of persona sheet or something from product marketing that gives you like some sort of ICP, ideal customer profile. And that's kind of a starting point, but I also feel like it's really not enough. It's normally pretty vague or pretty, maybe only one or two teams have had input into it. So I like to take that, understand what we think we should be targeting, but I also like to jump into Salesforce and run reports on close won and close lost, and to see if there's any differences that's not matching up with, maybe some of the documentation that we have for ideal customer profiles or personas. So that's one thing that I really like to do. And then the second thing before I even think about going in platform is understanding the product. So if I'm not working in-house, I get a full demo, I chat with their sales team. I really want to understand from their perspective, who do they want to be talking to and who's closing in the Salesforce data, but more qualitative data from them. And then kind of take all three of those things to then kind of recreate our audience targeting plan. And again, it's a starting point. It's never set it and forget it. So it's a starting point is what I'll say for launches for sure.
I hear you. I love the set it and forget it. I think I was, what was it? Ron Co, the bad infomercials from the 90s. Hana, how do you go about this? Where do you get started?
Yeah, well, I think Sidney kind of hit the nail on the head for sure, but I sort of think of it in three different buckets. And Sidney, you covered these pretty well. It's really like what you think would be that persona doc. Like, I think our customer looks like this. I think our ICP should, contain these criteria. And to Sidney's point, that should really be developed alongside your teams. So like with sales, with marketing, with product, with customer success even, because then you're getting that 360 view into not only the product, and the intentions of it, but also what's actually happening and what we want to happen versus what we just think will happen. So what you think, and then what they say. So looking to your customers, your actual customers, your audience that you can validate with, and listen to those sales calls, listen to the calls that went well, the calls that went badly, and listen to them full funnel. So from the early sales discovery calls all the way through customer success, and what does a really, really good engagement look like? What do they say about us? How are we solving their problems? What are their pain points? Because that's exactly what we want to replicate in most cases, or avoid. If you're like, wow, this is, red flags everywhere here, this is what we don't want to see. And then to Cindy's point, what your data says. So doing an opportunity analysis, looking at, what's in Salesforce, what has converted and why, what are those attributes? So that's kind of the lens that I look at it through. So very similar to Sydney's approach as well.
You gotta love it when you're listening to those sales calls and you're like, oh my gosh, they really said that.
That should be another session. That should be a therapy session, but keep going, Maurice.
Yeah, for sure. I definitely agree with all those points. I think my very first thing that I like to do is I'd love to just hear what people are saying. What are their pain points? What's the problem that they need that we're solving? Really just digging into how they're interacting with people down the line, because we can get leads in anytime. I think the nurture process and lower funnel activities is where I like to start, just because that's what I'm going to be tied to, So I think that's looking at those lower funnel opportunities, looking at sales calls from top of funnel to bottom. That's where I like to get started.